Welcome, Dr. Brett. So,
Thank you.
how to manage stress and anxiety, which is very common today?
Oh, you wanted me to answer the question how to manage stress and anxiety. So it's a pretty general question. In
Exactly.
general, I often say 11, 11, 11, which is 11 minutes of Wim Hof, some kind of breath work, 11 minutes of meditation, right? 11 minutes of exercise. The kids that I guide, I do a lot of athletes and entrepreneurs, but most of the kids that I guide, they're going to do 4 or 5 hours a day of exercise. The adults in particular, we need a basic formula, 11, 11, 11. So every day of their life, they're doing 11 minutes of exercise minimum, 11 minutes of breath work minimum, 11 minutes of meditation minimum. And that's your basic structure. The other piece of it is proactive communication and proactivity in general, because
Mhm.
when you're avoiding, you're going to have anxiety. And we live in a culture where a lot of people go on meds in large part because they're not dealing, straight up, and they're not taking enough action, and they're not course correcting enough.
Exactly. So, where does stress and anxiety actually come from?
Well, look, I mean, everybody's different, right? So some people are more neurotic, anxious, tense, and insecure by nature. There's always a nature nurture component to it, but a lot of it is coming from, poor communication and avoidance, right? When we're living life proactively and straight up and having tough communications, in other words, whatever we got to deal with, we handle, we're going to have far less anxiety. The other piece of it is an untrained mind. Most people have untrained minds. In other words, they're projecting, right? They're projecting their biases and conflicts onto others. They're worrying about things in the future that probably will never happen. And so they're not mastering the present moment. They're not bringing their focus back in, which is the essence of mental game training or sports psychology, always bringing your focus back into the here and now.
Hmm. What are some symptoms of stress anxiety? How we know that if a person is stressed or not? Like, is impulsive behavior a kind of symptoms of it?
I mean, impulsivity can be a sign of stress for sure. When people are under a lot of duress or stress, they're more likely to get impulsive, but they also get more avoidant. They get more anxious in general. They get more fearful in general, and they tend to sort of contract their energy field, right? So, people that are more relaxed are also going to probably be more outgoing. Some people talk too much. Some people drink too much. Some people smoke too much, right? So these are symptoms of underlying insecurities and anxieties that's not dealt with. And then a lot of people are self-medicating. And again, we live in a culture where if you have anxiety, you go to a doctor, most of the time they're going to prescribe meds. And that's often not the best way.
Hmm. So is this interconnected with insecurity, which is genetic or something happened in the childhood as well?
I mean, look, I mean, some people have had pretty horrendous, situations in their early childhood, traumas and so on. The more traumatic your childhood is, or the more funky your genetics are, that's obviously going to play a role here. But the reality is, if you don't train your mind, you're always going to have some form of anxiety, and if you don't untrain your mind, you're never going to be good enough because the mind constantly compares, right?
Mhm. So thank you. So how to build resilience and mental toughness?
Yeah, so again, these are our habits mostly. Some people are more resilient by nature and mentally tough by nature, but the nurture part of it, the experience, the conditioning part of it, Navi, is to build really good habits. That's your mental game training. Every day of your life, you find a way to exercise, no bullshit excuses. Every day of your life, you find a way to meditate, no bullshit excuses. Every day of your life, you find a way to do breath work. Every day of your life, you find a way to communicate. Now, the more you do that, the better your habits become, the more proactive you become, the less anxiety you have, the more you get on top of your insecurities. The therapy model in general doesn't necessarily teach you high levels of proactivity. A lot of times you're dwelling on the past, and that can actually reinforce anxiety because you're focused on insecurities and problems, not necessarily solutions.
Hmm. Um, a follow-up question like, why do we need a mental toughness?
Well, I mean, you get to decide. You want to have a more amazing life or not? Do you want to be more creative? Do you want to be more adventurous? Do you want to feel more alive? Then train your fucking mind. If you're not interested in a great life, then don't do it. Take meds or whatever it is people do. Now, again, I know some people think they need them, and sometimes they have value, but many times they're not necessary. There's a lot of work involved in learning how to train your mind and develop really positive habits. Some people aren't willing to do that work, and there's weed, porn, alcohol, and other symptoms of that unwillingness to work. Shortcuts. You can just, a lot of people just get stoned or drink a lot, right?
Hmm. What about fear? Is this something that we can treat it? Like some people are very much fearful of even success, fearful of success, fearful of the future, fearful of expanding their life. What
Yeah, and
is
that's what's that? What?
what is this and how to deal with fear?
Yeah, so how do we deal with fear and why do we have upper limit issues? Why are we afraid of success or failure and so on? I get it. Look, almost everybody's going to have some fear somewhere in their life. We're human, evolutionary biology. We weren't, if you look at 8 billion people, how many of them are safe, right? A couple billion are food, like deprived in some way. There's 7 or 8 wars going on at any time. Throughout human history, people were slaughtered, crusades, Holy Roman whatevers, what I mean? So there's just been a lot of war and a lot of like crime and victimhood. And so, of course, we're all going to have fears and we're all going to have insecurities. The question becomes, what do we do about them? Again, if you decide to train your mind, it's a lot of work, but the benefits of it are insane. So, can you overcome some of your fears? Yes. Can you overcome most of your fears? Probably. It depends. Some people, they're more deep rooted, but if you're willing to work at it, absolutely.
Hmm. And so, how to improve your focus and concentration?
That is mental game training. So that's the meditation, the mindfulness, the visualization, the breath work, the positive self-talk, and what I refer to as enhanced communication skills and so on. In other words, you're learning in a consistent way to train your focus, to bring it back. Mindfulness is the essence of mindfulness is paying attention to your thoughts, your feelings, your body sensations in a non-judgmental way, noticing when your focus, your mind is in the future or past, and bringing it back by what I call breathing, observing, and or communicating. The breath, 4 or 5 seconds in, 4 or 5 second hold, 4 or 5 second release, 4 or 5 second hold, or just quick deep breathing can help, right? Bringing your focus back into the moment by observing. If I just pay attention to you, I'm not in me, right? And then
Hmm.
communicating. If I say I'm a little bit in my head right now, Nabi, where I'm already less in my head by saying that.
Hmm.
Mm.
Exactly. Hmm. So, why do we need this concentration for achieving goals or some other places as well?
Well, it depends how you want to live. If you're ambitious about enjoying life, not just achieving goals, that's part of it,
Hmm.
then train your mind. If you're not interested in working that hard to train your mind, you'll have less enjoyment because you have so much more anxiety.
Hmm. Exactly. And how to overcome negative thoughts and beliefs, even.
Well, again, the question is, are you committed to personal growth? If you are, then you're going to constantly be working on training your mind, replacing the negativity with action and with some kind of, course correction, so to speak, right? Some kind of thought that's more positive.
Hmm. So, and about the goals, how to achieve our goals.
One step at a time, 7 million steps. In other words, constant taking action and then learning from our mistakes. If you're a young male and you want to figure out women, it's a lot of trial and error and a lot of course correction, right? If you want to
Hmm.
be a professional soccer player, unless you're the most gifted person on the planet, it is a lot of work and a lot of training, a lot of effort, and a lot of mental game training.
Hmm. So one question, a follow-up question in this regard is, does everyone has a unique goal in this world and need to pursue it, or we can choose whatever we want?
I mean, do we have free will? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, exactly.
Probably. I mean, I don't, I'm not I don't have my doctorate in philosophy here, but probably we have, a fair amount of choice, but not completely in the sense that, a lot of times we're unconscious. So how much choice do you have when you're conditioning? If you never question your values, if your parents are Democrat or your parents are Republican and you always vote Democrat or always vote Republican, how much soul searching have you done? How much have you questioned and challenged reality and your conditioning, right? How much have you
Mm,
explored other cultures? If you're raised in a different culture, you have different beliefs.
mm,
So the more personal growth work you do, maybe you get a little more conscious and then you have more choice. Otherwise, you're just largely your conditioning, whatever that conditioning is.
mm. So what does a healthy mind look like? Like for mental health, what do we need in general? Although it is a big question, like in general, if you can give
Well,
us
the
some tips.
ability to be in the present moment is probably a great sign of mental health. The more present you are, probably the healthier and happier you are, right? And then, humor and laughter. If you can't fucking laugh, I don't know how healthy you are. If you're super uptight, that's not a great sign. If you have a lot of anxiety, that's not a great sign, right? So you want to have a more trained mind. You want to be oriented towards the now, and you want to have a sense of purpose. What is that purpose? It varies for different people. But if you're lit by a sense of purpose, you're probably going to have much greater mental health.
Hmm. So about present moment, how can they come into the present moment? Only meditation?
Well, it's not only meditation, it's mindfulness practice, it's observing, it's breathing, it's course correcting, it's bringing your focus back constantly, right? So
Mm,
it's either some form of communication with self or other, some form of observation, or some form of meditation, mindfulness, or breath work. And then you're bringing your focus back. It's not once, twice, it's thousands of times. If you do it thousands of times, you'll get good at it. If you do it a few hundred times, you're going to be whatever. Not real, it's just the beginning.
So now I want to ask a question which, according to your profession, which of these works? Uh, Prayers, affirmations, or somewhat called subliminals?
What was the first one, Nabi?
Prayers,
Prayers,
affirmations, yeah,
affirmations.
and something called subliminal messages that we record on something and then
I
we
mean,
keep
look,
listening.
like we're all wired differently. Try all three. You know what I mean? Like, some people prayer is as good as meditative states, right? I ask people to not just pray, but also have a formal meditation practice as well. Affirmations, they have value. I don't think it'll be enough just you could affirm, you know what I mean? I love myself all day long, but if you don't take freaking action, I don't know how good your life's going to be and how much you're going to love yourself. Subliminals, I guess if you go to bed with, I'm the greatest, I'm the champion or whatever playing in your ear all night, could that have value? Probably. I mean, the Manchurian Candidate, you know what I mean? Like, remember those famous movies or a remake of it, but you can brainwash and program people to do a lot of things. So subliminals probably have some real value. I used to play with that decades ago. I haven't explored it in a while.
Hmm. So they are somewhat works
Well,
working.
it depends on, look, I tell everybody, like, I'm a trial and error type, right? So have experiences, try it on. If it doesn't work, discard it. If it does, keep it, right? That's
Hmm.
basic Buddhism, right?
Hmm.
Basic tenets of the Buddha, not the religion so much as just the philosophy.
Hmm.
Go inside for answers, try it on. If it works, terrific. If it doesn't, discard it.
Hmm. So, what are some psychological breaks for a person's improvement or self-improvement or development or achieving a goal? Like, for example, self-esteem. Is this a big issue, or there are some similar issues that prevent a person to achieve their goals or to get a good life?
I mean, look, everybody's born a little bit different here, right? Some people have 85 IQs, some people have 150 IQ. So some people are more gifted, some people are better looking, some people are better athletes, right? So we're working with what we're given, God given, so to speak, and then some of us develop ourselves. So you can develop those talents. How do you develop those talents? through mastery, right? And that's how you develop higher levels of self-esteem is you're taking a lot of action and then you're learning from your mistakes and course correcting and getting better and your self-esteem rises. You want to
Mm,
pass, a test, study, and then if you fail it, study differently, talk to the teacher, right? In other words, let's course correct here.
mm. And you're also a sports and business psychologist. So what do you have for business people?
It's very similar. It's not that different, meaning you still have to train your mind. The business part of it is a lot of communication and relationship driven, but athletes, there's a lot of communication and relationship drive there too, because they're dealing with coaches and parents and so on. So it's not that dissimilar in the sense that we're elevating people's presence and their performance through their communication and through their habits and through their disciplines and through their, behaviors.
Mhm. So how do you help people, some of the help that you offer in different aspects of their psychology, like relationships, sports, and business, some methodology?
I'm a hybrid type. So I'm doing a combination of life coaching, business coaching, psychology, and sports psychology. Hard combination to find, but so I'm doing basically many aspects of someone's life, right? I don't do marriages anymore. You know what I mean? I did traditional psychology a long time ago. And you know what I mean? So I'm not working with marriages or something like that, but I've had much experience doing families and marriages, anxiety, depression, you name it, family systems work and so on. So my background is huge in psychology, but over the past 15 years, I'm working mostly with athletes and entrepreneurs and not just teaching them the mental game, but also all these different skill sets to succeed across the board to make better decisions. Business people, as you know, they need to make good decisions, just like everybody else. But if they make great decisions, they're going to be more successful.
Mm, mm, mm. So what are the biggest challenges against business people? Like I know that there are many with everybody that's different, but when you see usual among majority of them.
I mean, I think the vast majority of people resist change, right? So learning how to pivot and pivot, quicker in general is one of the challenges. The people that know how to pivot, they know how to change, and they know how to, accept what they, the serenity prayer, they accept the things they can't control, and then they fucking change the rest of it. So, it's a lot of work to become successful, not just financially, but emotionally and spiritually. But those that pivot, they change to adjusting circumstances, AI, right? AI is going to change the world here, at least, in America and Europe or something. Maybe, I don't know, parts of the third world might be delayed a little bit, but, who's going to pivot, who's going to change, and evolve, and who's going to get left behind?
Mm. So people must be ready for change and constant change.
Tu Kiang Bian Blang in Thai, my wife is Thai, all things change. The Buddha
Mm,
talked about that 2,500 years ago. So,
mm,
change is coming. It's faster now, right, with technology. But if you don't adjust well to change, if your wife dies or leaves you, you're going to have a problem.
mm. So yeah, that's a good issue that you mentioned. So what do you think about this susceptibility of people who come across some issues like then they got very easily PTSD and then they follow up with that. So what do you think? How smooth people should take their life so they can smoothly go over everything because life is not the same way. If we come across toughness, difficulty, and challenges. So, what is your recommendation?
I mean,
In
look, PTSD is tricky. It's a trauma response. It can be pretty severe. I worked in the military. I've had, experiences myself with it. So you're talking about something that, it's trauma based, right? If you're on a battlefield, I often say, if you put 10 people on a battlefield, one or two will crack right away, one or two may never crack, and everybody else is going to be somewhere in the middle of that bell curve. So this shit gets tricky when you're talking about something like mental illness and PTSD. It's a process. You got to work it through. Some people will, many people won't, right? They never really recover. So that's a complicated question you're asking. It really, the answer is it depends. It depends on their commitment to growth, their willingness to stick with it, the strength and ability of the, guide or practitioner or therapist, whoever's working with them. It's complicated. But in general, the more action we take towards our dreams, the better, and the more we course correct, the better, and the more we deal with shit, the better. So if you avoid dealing with your PTSD, you're probably going to have all kinds of substance abuse issues, and you might have it anyway because it's complicated.
Mhm. Mhm. So you talked about the goals and you have profession in here. So what do you think? Which goal is good? I mean, do people already know their goals or something they have instinctively a tendency to go toward it? Is this a goal or they have, as you said, free will to choose something, even if they fail, they just go? And because most of the people are lost. So that's why I'm asking, what is your common recommendation?
I mean, look, if you commit to personal growth, then you explore what your goals are, what your desires are, and so on. If you're not committed to personal growth, then maybe you're a little bit more conditioned or programmed by your early childhood environment, right? Like I said, if your parents are Republican and you have no commitment to personal growth, you'll be Republican. Same thing for Democrats or same thing for religion or whatever it is. So it really
Mm,
just depends and varies on, are you looking under the hood? And if you are looking under the hood, then everything is subject to change. If you're not looking under the hood, you are your conditioning.
right. Mm. So, how does the people find your work? Do you want to tell us?
I have a pretty big web presence, drbrettdenkin.com, in the tri-state area. And then we have a pretty big presence on LinkedIn. And we have another website, the Mental Game Cafe, mentalgamecafe.com. So people find me, I have clients in Europe, South America, all over the United States. People find me now, through a combination of word of mouth and through a combination of searching on the web for mostly sports psychology at this stage. But I do work with that entrepreneurs and your occasional billionaire type.
Okay. So what do you offer for sports people?
Um, Soup to nuts, everything you can think of. We're going to take their performance and their life to the next level. So, a D1 that wants to be a pro that wants to take their game to the next level. There's different levels and layers to it. D3s that, want to be D1s. It's all about, if you're ambitious, then I can help you get there a little bit sooner and a little bit faster than you're going to get there on your own because I have skill sets and I'm an all-in personality type, right? So if I get behind people, I often say they're going to win.
Exactly. Well, that's good. That's a good confidence because you have experience and you already know your work.
Yeah, well, I'm 50, 60,000 hours in. I started grad school in 1991. I got a doctorate in 95, got licensed as a psychologist in 97. And then, the past 17, 18 years, I've really morphed this thing into psychology, sports psychology and business, right? So it's gotten increasingly fun because I've changed and evolved and made it really interesting.
Wow, that's very good. Yes, so thank you so much, doctor,
All
for
right.
answering a lot of questions. And I hope to have you again on the podcast.
Awesome, pal.
Yeah, thank you so much.
All right.
Have a
Take
great
care.
day.
All right. All right. You too.